Hello, listeners. Welcome to a special episode of Stars of the Golden Age. This is the first ever bonus episode, and I'm so excited to share it with you. This is a teaser, a little sampling for you of what the bonus content will look like on our Patreon exclusive bonus episodes. I just launched the Patreon, so let me tell you a little bit about the tiers of support over there. First of all, for those of you who aren't familiar with Patreon, it is a site dedicated to helping content creators and artists connect with their audiences, and for consumers to give a little support for the creators' hard work if they choose. And in return, creators can share exclusive benefits with their supporters as a thank you, as in bonus episodes like this one. I have 2 tiers of support available on Patreon. There is the Emmy tier, which is $4 per month, and with that tier you get a Stars of the Golden Age sticker, a Movie of the Month club, and a short bonus episode highlighting the movie, access to the exclusive Stars of the Golden Age Discord chat rooms, where we can all connect and chat about our love of the Golden Age and chat about the podcast, and a special shout out to you on a regular episode. The second tier is the Oscar tier, which is $8 per month. With that tier, you get everything I just mentioned with the Emmy tier, plus a full-length bonus episode each month, which is what this episode is a teaser of once I stop my yapping. The Oscar-level bonus episodes will be some super fun topics, not just of individuals like my regular episodes. Topics I have planned are history of the Oscars, Hollywood scandals, the Big 5 studios, Hollywood hauntings, Golden Age gossip columns, Hollywood fixers, famous Hollywood families, and so many more. So, if you signed up today, when would you get your first bonus episode, and when would the first movie club and movie club mini episode take place? Good question. The full-length bonus episodes for the Oscar tier supporters will be dropped on the 3rd Wednesday of every month, including this month. So, on Wednesday, October 16th, Oscar tier patrons will have access to the first Patreon exclusive bonus episode. And I'll tell you the topic right now: Old Hollywood Studio Rules. I will tell you all about the strict rules that stars had to adhere to when they signed a contract with a film studio. As for the Movie Club, which is available to both the Emmy and Oscar Patreon tiers, I will announce the monthly movie on the 1st of each month. Patrons will have from then until the last Wednesday of the month to view the movie if they want to partake, and on the last Wednesday of each month is when I will drop my Movie of the Month bonus episode, which will be a little shorter than my typical episodes. The Movie of the Month Discord chat room will be open at all times to discuss these movies. How will I let you know what the Movie of the Month is? Also a good question. I will announce it on Patreon itself, and I will announce it on Discord in both the general chat room and the Movie of the Month chat room. I will also announce it on my first regular episode of the month, on each Movie of the Month bonus episodes for the following month, and on Facebook and Instagram on the Stars of the Golden Age pages. So lots of places you can figure that out. And I will also make sure to tell you how to stream the films. Just be aware that some of them may need to be rented from a streaming service, but I will try to include as many free-to-watch movies as possible. Don't forget to check out your local libraries for their DVD selections as well. Since this teaser bonus episode is coming out the 2nd week of October, I will let you know right now that the October movie of the month is Arsenic and Old Lace, starring Cary Grant. I thought this was a very fitting film for the month of Halloween. I was able to watch this film on Amazon Prime, but I did have to rent it, which cost $3.99. So, if you plan to subscribe to the Emmy or Oscar tier on the Stars of the Golden Age Patreon, that is the movie that we will be discussing in the Discord chat room and that I will be highlighting in the Movie of the Month bonus episode on Wednesday, October 30th, just in time for Halloween. please consider joining my Patreon and supporting the show. It is a ton of work each week, and don't get me wrong, I am loving it. But I'd also love to someday upgrade my equipment, pay for all the books I use for my research, and be able to put more time and resources into the show. Like Sally Struthers used to say on those commercials from the 80s, for just 26 cents a day, you can help. Plus, you get some pretty sweet perks for joining. You can sign up at patreon.com/Stars of the Golden Age podcast. Or you can just go to the Patreon website or app and search Stars of the Golden Age. Now, on to the show. Thanks for letting me rant so long. Today's bonus episode teaser topic is Hollywood Golden Age nightclubs. So fun. Partying in the 1930s and 1940s was a wild time. Way more fun than today's nightlife. Nobody was glued to their phones, and there were no smartphones in everyone's pocket to take pictures and videos of all the wild antics. It was a time to let loose, overindulge in whiskey and champagne, initiate torrid love affairs, and, in LA at least, network with other prominent Hollywood figures. Today, I'm going to talk about a few of the most popular Hollywood nightclubs of the 30s and 40s, and I'll share some stories of the shenanigans that took place within their walls. The place to be during the golden age of Hollywood was the Sunset Strip. Sunset Boulevard is 22 miles long, reaching from downtown Los Angeles west into the sunset to the Pacific Ocean. But it is a small 1.7-mile stretch of the Sunset Boulevard that is immensely rich in history, secrets, talent, scandals, brawls, and so many drunken nights. The Sunset Strip. First, let's talk about the history of the Sunset Strip, where some of the most legendary LA area nightclubs have resided throughout history. Prior to West Hollywood becoming incorporated, the little chunk of land where the Sunset Strip lies was unincorporated and out of the jurisdiction of the LAPD. A lawless land. Sunset Boulevard was first recorded in the Street Department City Records in 1888. Back then, it was a wagon trail, mostly used by local farmers. A large 240-acre parcel occupied a ranch and a mansion owned by a Belgian banker and real estate investor named Victor Poney. Surrounding his ranch were fields of poinsettias and avocado trees. That sounds pretty awesome. An April 29, 1906 article from the Los Angeles Times read, quote, Sunset Boulevard, an 80-foot street, is being extended through the land and through Mr. Poney's property, which will make a very attractive scenic drive along the foothills, end quote. By the Roaring Twenties, this scenic expansion would be a bustling hotspot for illegal drinking, illegal gambling, and lots of partying. Its location between working Hollywood and the posh homes of Beverly Hills made it a perfect spot for dining, socializing, and partying the night away. The mob had gambling halls set up on the Strip, and during Prohibition, speakeasies were easy to come by for that forbidden glass or 10 of whiskey. The Sunset Strip quickly became the place to be for the rich, powerful, and famous of Tinseltown. By the time Prohibition was lifted in 1933, a change to the party scene on the Sunset Strip brought forth a legendary decade and a half of the Hollywood social scene. Willie Wilkerson, son of the Sunset Strip club owner Billy Wilkerson, said, quote, Hollywood was Las Vegas before Las Vegas was Las Vegas, end quote, referring to the vibe on the Strip. Life was really great on the Sunset Strip for a few decades. When the mob got too involved with the Sunset Strip clubs, though, a major crackdown on crime and illegal gambling starting in 1949 brought change to the patronage on the Strip and signaled an end of an era. More rules, less fun. Let's talk about a few of the most famous hotspots on the Sunset Strip during the 1930s and 1940s. The Trocadero. Hollywood Reporter founder and publisher Billy Wilkerson opened the upscale French-themed Café Trocadero at 8610 Sunset Boulevard in 1934. And it quickly became a hotspot for stars like Clark Gable and Carole Lombard, Jean Harlow and William Powell, Lana Turner, Tyrone Power, Fred Astaire, all of the biggest names in Hollywood. The previous tenant of the building was the Café La Bohème, which welcomed the LGBTQ community in a time when they weren't welcome to be openly themselves in very many places. The tables at the Troc filled up every night with celebrities, all knowing that dining and partying at the Trocadero also meant that they would likely be featured in its owner's publication, The Hollywood Reporter. Comedian Jack Benny is quoted as saying, quote, "Dining at the Troc was better than paying an expensive publicist," end quote. The Trocadero backroom was constantly filled with powerful men in the entertainment industry like Sam Goldwyn and Irving Thalberg, who had more money than they knew what to do with, engaging in high-stakes poker, downing whiskey, and filling the air with clouds of cigar smoke. It wasn't just powerful Hollywood faces that made up the glamorous crowd at the Troc, though. Mobsters like Bugsy Siegel and Mickey Cohen were regulars for dinner, drinking, and gambling the night away, too. The Troc had amateur hour on Sunday nights where soon-to-be stars like Judy Garland and Jackie Gleason would perform. Los Angeles Times reporter Jim Heineman described the Trocadero in his May 21, 2006 article like this. Quote, "Guests entered through a lobby surrounded by a frisée of Paris and a row of striped satin settees, handing their wraps to a pert coat check girl before moving into the cream and gold main dining room. Padded walls framed with a mirror-like dance floor which overlooked the grid of Hollywood. Xavier Cugat and his band, centered on a stage along the west wall, played all evening, and the menu was 30s elegant. Blini au caviar Romanov, green turtle amontillado soup, alligator pear salad, and Chateaubriand. Wandering down to the cellar, the Troc's more informal and clubby oak-paneled boîte, you might run into Clark Gable and Carole Lombard, Bill Powell and Jean Harlow chatting it up with Jimmy Stewart in an overstuffed booth. Cozying up to the copper-topped bar might be Joan Crawford and spouse Franchot Tone, sipping on the house specialty, the Trocadero Cooler. Everyone was invited, but the cost of such an evening, around $18 in 1936, when the average hourly wage was around 25 cents, might set back the average Joe a couple of weeks' pay. Less extravagant, but more within reach, you could also go to the cellar, have drinks and $2 dinners for two, and get out with only a $6 charge. But that was still 3 days' pay." End quote. The Trocadero did see its fair share of drama, though. Most notably is the death of comedian Ted Healy, the creator of The Three Stooges. Allegedly, Healy was at the Troc on December 21, 1937, just 3 days after his first baby was born. And words were exchanged between the intoxicated Healy and 3 other intoxicated patrons. Producer Albert Cubby Broccoli, who would later go on to produce the James Bond series. His cousin Pat DeSico, who was connected to the mob, was Thelma Todd's ex-husband and future husband of Gloria Vanderbilt. And MGM character actor Wallace Beery. A fight between Ted Healy and the 3 others began inside before being taken outside. Supposedly, Broccoli was able to hold Healy down while the other 2 severely beat him and left him unconscious in a pool of blood. Someone brought him home, not a hospital, and he died the next day of a head injury resulting from the attack. MGM fixers, Eddie Mannix and Howard Strickling, did what they did best and wiped the whole incident under the rug. Billy Wilkerson pretty quickly tired of the Trocadero and wanted to put his focus into his other business ventures, which we'll get a little into later. And in 1938, ownership went over to a couple of those mobsters who loved to rub shoulders at the club, Bugsy Siegel and Mickey Cohen. And since I need to mention Gone with the Wind in almost every single episode, the post-premiere party for Gone with the Wind was held at the Troc in December of 1939. patrons eventually moved on, not loving partying in the mob-ruled club and the raids that occurred because of it being a mob-ruled club. The Trocadero closed its doors for good in 1946, leaving behind ghosts of countless legendary memories within its walls. Ciro's, another one of the most iconic nightclubs on the Sunset Strip. Ciro's opened in 1940 and was a hub for after-dark antics. The building was built in 1935 at 8433 Sunset Boulevard and housed the Club Seville, which had a huge iconic fish aquarium under the glass dance floor, poor fish, and then sold to Billy Wilkerson in 1939. This is one of the business ventures he moved on to when he tired of the daily dealings of the Trocadero. He did a major remodel inside, he got rid of that fish tank, I don't know what happened to the fish, and opened the doors to the glamorous celebrities-only Ciro Club on January 30th, 1940. The new decor was described as, quote, a riot of color and texture, with red silk sofas, ceilings painted a matching red, and walls draped in heavy, ribbed, silk-dyed pale pastel green, end quote. Sounds intense. A spotlight shone on the entrance to showcase every person who walked through the door. Phone jacks were installed at every table in Ciro's, so important Hollywood patrons were available to take calls at all times. And my favorite, a hidden women's parlor. Oh, the secrets and gossip that were spilled in there. By 1942, in what seems to be his style, Billy Wilkerson lost interest in Ciro's and moved along. From the sounds of it, Wilkerson was more interested in the planning stages of things and grew bored once the monotony of running a business settled in. Herman Hover was the new owner of Ciro's, and he opened the club to the public as well. The building was almost destroyed by a fire that went through it in June of 1943, but it rocked on despite the near-complete tragedy. The late 40s saw quite a difference within the walls of the once posh and upscale Ciro's. The club became known for its late-night bar fights. I just picture the brawls in Roadhouse in there. Hover said he contemplated just replacing the dance floor with a boxing ring. That's how bad it was. This is kind of funny. Hover gave every patron a 3-brawl limit. After that, they're no longer welcome. Man, I think that's pretty generous. There was one famous exemption to the 3-brawl limit, though, Frank Sinatra. He could get into as many bar fights as he wanted, and he did, mostly over Ava Gardner. In 1951, actor Franchot Tone, who was married to Barbara Payton at the time and had been married to Joan Crawford several years earlier, walked over to gossip columnist Floribel Mears' table and point-blank spit in her face. He really didn't like the things she was writing about his new marriage to Barbara Payton. He was slapped with a $400 fine for the incident, which would be about $4,800 today. Lesson learned, I hope. Ciro's closed its doors in 1957. After a few changes of hands as a rock club in the 60s, the iconic location became another legendary club in 1972, the Comedy Store. Macombo. The Macombo nightclub was located at 8588 Sunset Boulevard and was open for business from 1941 to 1958. The club was heavily adorned in Latin American decor, including several caged exotic birds, also poor birds. Allegedly, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz loved Macombo so much that they used it as an inspiration for their fictional Tropicana Club in I Love Lucy. Notable events of the Macombo were being the place where Ella Fitzgerald's career took off, and also being the club that Myrna Loy and Arthur Hornblow threw a lavish party to celebrate their divorce. And one more, Macombo is the place where Frank Sinatra made his Los Angeles solo debut. Stars who could regularly be seen at Macombo over the years were Bogey and Bacall, Clark Gable and Carole Lombard, Judy Garland, Lana Turner, Jane Mansfield, Errol Flynn, Marlena Dietrich, Tyrone Power, Louis B. Mayer, Howard Hughes, Grace Kelly, and Charlie Chaplin. Wow. The Macambo was also known for its late-night brawls. Like my mom always told me, nothing good ever happens after midnight. The Coconut Grove. This one was not on the Sunset Strip, but it wasn't too far away, and it was a hub for nightlife among the who's who of Hollywood in the 1930s and 1940s, having been open since 1921. The Coconut Grove resided inside the sprawling Ambassador Hotel at 3400 Wilshire Boulevard in LA. Like the other upscale clubs, the Coconut Grove was spared no expense on gaudiness. Exotic themes were considered high class and elegant in those times, so that's what was showcased within the walls of the Coconut Grove as well. The entrance doors were gold-leafed and etched with palm trees. There were huge, colorful murals, papier-mâché palm trees everywhere with Chinese lanterns strung between them. Stars illuminated the ceiling, and life-size mechanical monkeys with glowing eyes were set within the fake trees. You guys, what I just described was considered the highest of class in the 40s. And so many fire hazards. Actually, there was a famous nightclub fire at a club in Boston bearing the same name in 1942. The Boston Coconut Grove fire, also tropically themed and filled to the brim with fire hazards, killed almost 500 people in November of 1942. It's a really tragic story. But back to the Hollywood Coconut Grove. Here's the cool thing about the Coconut Grove. Unauthorized cameras were off limits, which meant the stars who were constantly tailed and watched for any and all mishaps in judgment could completely let loose. Imagine the things that happened there. I hope they were all able to let their hair down and party like there was no tomorrow. The Coconut Grove hosted the Academy Awards 5 times. This is where Hattie McDaniel received her history-making Oscar award for her role in Gone with the Wind. Mickey Mouse's 2nd birthday party was held at the Coconut Grove. Mickey Mouse's 2nd birthday party. Let that sink in. So much history occurred there. The Coconut Grove went through much change and evolution until officially closing in 1989. It had a long, esteemed run. The Hollywood Brown Derby. This isn't the original Brown Derby location. The original actually was on the Sunset Strip, but it was the location most popular with Hollywood celebrities. The Hollywood Brown Derby opened on Valentine's Day, 1929, at 1628 North Vine Street. Its walls were adorned with caricatures of famous actors. This is where Clark Gable popped the question to Carole Lombard. Spoiler alert, she said yes. This is where Lucille Ball had her first LA dinner when she moved to town. And this is where she later filmed an iconic scene of I Love Lucy, where she and the Mertzes dined in a booth next to William Holden, with Lucy hilariously eating spaghetti and meatballs before causing William Holden to end up with an entire pie in his face. You can see the caricatures on the walls in that scene too. Legendary gossip columnists Hedda Harper and Luella Parsons called the Brown Derby their unofficial headquarters. This was where they could find the juicy gossip. A couple of more fun facts about the Hollywood Brown Derby. The Cobb salad was reportedly invented there, quite unintentionally, by owner Bob Cobb. And Shirley Temple claims that the non-alcoholic drink named after her that every child must have at wedding receptions was invented at the Hollywood Brown Derby too, without her consent or involvement, and she was not happy that they used her name for it. Maybe she would have been happier if they named a vodka drink after her. The Chateau Marmont. Hollywood's favorite hideaway, conveniently located right in the heart of the Sunset Strip at 8221 Sunset Boulevard. Many famous figures called the Chateau Marmont home at one time or another, some short-term, some a little longer. And it was the place of so many legendary parties. Desi Arnaz would retreat to the chateau after his legendary fights with his wife Lucille Ball. Montgomery Clift recovered at the chateau after his near-death car accident. And, of course, John Belushi died in Bungalow 3 of the Chateau Marmont in 1982. The Chateau Marmont was almost destroyed twice at the hands of Bette Davis when she fell asleep with a lit cigarette and started her room on fire. Twice. The Chateau Marmont could not be taken down by Bette Davis, though. It is still open today, and there are many stories of its alleged hauntings. You can stay in a 600 square foot bungalow at the chateau today for about $700 a night. Now, how about some legendary Hollywood house parties? William Randolph Hearst, the media mogul, threw some pretty epic parties at the Hearst Castle. One party, where the biggest Hollywood names were in attendance, like Clark Gable and Joan Crawford, ended with some alcohol-fueled drama when Hearst accused his mistress, Marion Davies, of having an affair with Charlie Chaplin. Hearst sought out Chaplin and punched him, but he accidentally punched a Charlie Chaplin look-alike instead. Poor guy. And Marion Davies was indeed sleeping with Charlie Chaplin. Drama upon drama. Hearst and Davies were known for their lavish costume parties at the castle, and Hearst even hired tailors and seamstresses to hand-make costumes for the guests if needed. One theme was to dress like your favorite movie star, and celebrities showed up dressed as each other. That must have been awesome. Hearst and Davies also threw parties at the quaint little seaside cottage that he had built for her, just a little 110-room beach house. One huge party thrown at the beach house was a 75th birthday celebration for Hearst. 2,000 people were invited. The party's theme was circus. It had a full-size merry-go-round that a wall had to be removed to fit, and Bette Davis showed up dressed as a sideshow bearded lady. One last fun tidbit about the legendary Hearst parties. At one party, Harpo Marx wandered down to the wine cellar, which, by the way, held 10,000 bottles of wine, and he stumbled upon a bunch of mink coats. So what do? Well, you take them all outside and dress up the stone garden statues with said mink coats. Obviously. It doesn't sound like Harpo really needed that bottle of wine after all. I think he was doing pretty good. The Hearst Castle was a 4-hour trip from Hollywood, so you know these parties were days-long affairs. So much fun was had there. And I bet the day after breakfasts were amazing too. Another home that was the place to be invited over to was the home of William and Edie Getz. Edie was the daughter of MGM head Louis B. Mayer, and Mayer had given his daughter the little gift of a lavish mansion estate. William and Edie had a large screening room, and they loved to invite celebrities over to screen new films. If you were invited over to the Getz home, you were somebody. They were known to have the best food, the best drinks, and the best atmosphere. You know that there were countless legendary parties happening all over. The things that happened at those parties are epic. And I think thousands of secrets from them went to the grave. I just picture the parties in The Great Gatsby, both the drunken apartment parties and the glamorous mansion parties at Gatsby's. Part of me wishes I knew more behind-the-scenes stories from these legendary parties, but most of me is just very happy and content that those celebrities were able to live their best lives and have as much rowdy fun as they wanted without us ever knowing the details. It can't be easy being in the spotlight every moment. I hope there were a lot of dressing up the garden statues with mink coats type moments for them. In conclusion, the Sunset Strip section of LA's Sunset Boulevard holds some of the most legendary moments in Hollywood history. For decades, not just the time period that we focused on today. It has seen many transformations over the years, but I personally believe that the 20s, 30s, and 40s were likely the most legendary and the most magical. There's just something about that time in history, especially in Hollywood history. Oh, how amazing it would be to travel back in time for a few days. Who's coming with me? Thank you all so much for listening to this special bonus episode teaser. Going forward, my regular weekly episodes will continue to highlight individuals in old Hollywood history. And if you like what you heard today and want to hear more fun and interesting bonus topics, please check out my Patreon page and sign up for the Oscar tier to receive monthly bonus episodes like this one. Again, you can find all of the information about that at patreon.com/Stars of the Golden Age podcast, or go to the Patreon website or app and search the show. Like I said at the top of the show, I would love to upgrade my equipment and maybe even move out of the walk-in closet that I record from for the best sound quality. You can do a podcast for pretty cheap, but if you want to do a top-notch podcast, it costs some pretty serious dough. And I want to give you guys top-notch. And as some of you know, I do like to use actual biography books for my research because I just find them more detailed and more accurate most of the time. And they do cost money, so the Patreon money can help go towards some great books for some great research in the future. Thank you all so much. I truly appreciate every single one of you. For this episode, I got a ton of amazing information from westhollywoodhistory.org. I also used an article from Inside Hook by Caitlin White from March 10th, 2023, called Uncovering the Sunset Strip's Secret History of Glamour and Gambling. The Los Angeles Times, theculturetrip.com, LAlist.com, and Wikipedia.